Chaos erupted inside the songbird. The gravity boot hit the first soldier with such force that he crashed against the wall. The second soldier fired his weapon, but Sun moved her hand in a swift motion. The energy blast curved in midair, hitting the ceiling instead. Todd didn't waste the opportunity. He lunged. The gravity on Nick 7 was so weak that Ty felt almost weightless. Without his boots, a single jump might send him flying into space forever. He moved carefully, each step slow and deliberate. The claws in his boots dug into the rock with loud clicks. The outpost grew larger as he approached. It was bigger than it had looked from the ship. Its dome was made of dark metal panels, some now damaged. A few small windows showed only darkness inside. "Mary, are you reading anything?" Ta spoke into his helmet comm. "Outpost power levels at 12% and falling." Mary's voice answered. "Life signs still present but weak." Tay reached the main airlock. The control panel next to it was dead. He pulled out his multi-tool and pried open the panel cover. Inside, he connected his suit's power pack to the emergency circuits. With a grinding noise, the airlock door slid open. He stepped inside and waited as the small chamber pressurized. The inner door opened slowly, revealing a dark hallway. Tay turned on his flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, showing signs of trouble. Papers scattered on the floor. A chair tipped over. A coffee mug broken on the ground, its contents long dried up. "Someone left in a hurry," Tom muttered. He moved deeper into the outpost. The main control room was a mess. Screens were cracked. Equipment was damaged. One wall had a star map with red marks on certain systems. But there were no bodies, no blood, just emptiness. "Mary, check for any active data systems," Ta said. "One system still online. Main laboratory section. Power being diverted there from all other systems." Ta followed his flashlight beam down another corridor. Warning signs covered the walls. "Restricted area and authorized personnel only." At the end of the corridor stood a heavy metal door. Unlike the rest of the outpost, this door had power. A small green light glowed on its control panel. "The life sign is directly behind this door," Mary said. Ty studied the control panel. It needed a keycard and a code. He didn't have either. "Time for Plan B," he said, pulling out his laser cutter. Carefully, he cut around the control panel until he could pull it away from the wall. Behind it was a tangle of wires. Ty worked quickly, connecting some wires and cutting others. After 5 tense minutes, the door gave a loud beep and slid open a few inches. Ta put away his tools and pushed against the heavy door. It moved slowly, just wide enough for him to squeeze through. The laboratory beyond was cleaner than the rest of the outpost. Machines hummed quietly, using the last of the power. In the center of the room stood a single cryostasis pod. Its surface was frosted over, but through a small window, Ty could see a face. A woman. Her eyes were closed, her skin pale. Dark hair framed her face. Ta wiped the frost from the pod's control screen. The readout showed her vital signs. Weak but stable. The screen flickered, power failing. "Name, G. Project Lead," Todd read aloud. The rest of the information was corrupted or locked. A loud alarm suddenly blared through the outpost. "Warning," Mary's voice came urgently through his comm. "Outpost power failing. Backup systems critical. Detecting automated self-destruct sequence activated." "How long?" Ty asked, his heart racing. 52 minutes until detonation." Ta looked at the woman in the pod. Jai. He couldn't leave her here to die. The pod's status screen flashed a new warning. CRYOF. ALUR imminent. "Mary, can I move this pod to the ship?" Ty asked. "Negative. Pod weighs approximately 400 kilograms. Cannot be transported with available equipment." Ty studied the controls. There was only one option. "Then I'll have to wake her up," he said, pressing the emergency revival button. The pod hissed as it began the warming sequence. Ta watched as G's eyelids twitched. He had less than an hour to get them both off this doomed outpost. The cryopod hummed as it warmed up. Ta checked the time. 48 minutes until the outpost exploded. The pod would take at least 15 minutes to safely wake Jai. That left barely half an hour to get back to the ship. He tried his comm again. "Mary, can you contact any ships in the area? Emergency override channels." "Negative," Mary replied. "The asteroid field is blocking all long-range signals. Additionally, I detect a jamming signal coming from somewhere nearby." Ta frowned. Someone didn't want anyone talking to anyone else in this part of space. The pod beeped, drawing his attention back. The warming cycle was moving faster than expected. Ji's vital signs were growing stronger. Her fingers twitched. Then her eyelids fluttered. With a hiss, the pod's lid unlocked and slowly lifted. Ji's eyes opened. They were a strange violet color that seemed to glow in the dim light. She tried to sit up, then fell back weakly. Her mouth moved, forming words Tai couldn't understand. "I'm sorry, I don't understand," Ta said. "My name is Ta. I'm here to help you." Jai stared at him, confusion in her eyes. She spoke again, her voice hoarse from disuse. This time, Tata's translator picked up fragments. "Danger. Must leave. They're coming back." "Who's coming back?" Tai asked. Instead of answering, she tried to stand. Her legs gave out immediately. Ta caught her before she hit the floor. "You're too weak to walk," he said. "The cryo-sleep has affected your muscles." The outpost's lights flickered as another alarm sounded. "Warning. 40 minutes to self-destruct," a computerized voice announced. Jig grabbed Ta's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "Data core," she said in broken standard language. "Must save it." She pointed to a small panel on the side of the cryopod. Tai opened it and found a metal cylinder about the size of his thumb. He pocketed it without question. "We need to go," he said. "Can you walk at all?" Ji tried again to stand, managing only a few shaky steps before collapsing. Ta caught her again, his mind racing. He couldn't carry the pod. Ji couldn't walk, and they had to move across the surface of a nearly gravityless planet. There was only one option. "I'll have to carry you," he said. Ji shook her head and pointed at his gravity boots. She made walking motions with her fingers, then pointed to herself. "You need gravity boots too," Tai realized. "But I only have one pair." Ji nodded, then mimed something on her back. "You want me to carry you on my back?" Tai asked. "While wearing the boots?" She nodded again. Tai thought quickly. The boots weren't made for carrying two people. The strain might damage them. But what choice did they have? "Mary," he called. "Run calculations. Can my gravity boots support two people across the surface back to the ship?" "Calculating," Mary replied. After a brief pause, "Boot integrity will decrease to 64% under double weight. Claw mechanisms will experience 78% more stress than design parameters. Success probability, 73%. Not great odds, but not terrible either." "Then that's what we'll do," Ta decided. He helped Jai into a sitting position and removed his emergency webbing from his suit's supply pack. Working quickly, he fashioned a harness that would secure Ji to his back. "This is going to be uncomfortable," he warned her. Ji nodded, her face determined despite her weakness. Ta helped her onto his back. She was lighter than he expected, but still a significant weight. He secured the webbing, making sure she couldn't slip off. "Warning. 35 minutes to self-destruct," the computer announced. "Hold on tight," Ta said. "We're getting out of here." With Ji secured to his back, Ta took an experimental step. The gravity boot's claws dug deeper into the floor under the extra weight. The machinery whined slightly. "Mary, we're coming out. Have the ship ready." Tai took a deep breath and began walking toward the exit, carrying his mysterious passenger. Behind them, the lights of the laboratory went dark as the final power reserves failed. Leaving the outpost was harder than entering it. The airlock seemed smaller with two people. She pressed against Ta's back as he squeezed them through the narrow space. Her breathing was quick and shallow in his ear. "Ready?" Ta asked as the outer door slid open. Ji's arms tightened around his shoulders in response. The barren landscape of Nix 7 stretched before them. Jagged rocks jutted up like teeth. Deep cracks split the ground. In the distance, Ta could see the songbird waiting, its silver hull gleaming in the starlight. 200 meters, Ta said. "We can make it." He took a careful step forward. The gravity boots whined under the extra weight. The claws extended deeper than normal, digging hard into the rocky surface. "Mary, monitor boot performance," Ta instructed through his comm. "Monitoring," Mary replied. "Current boot integrity, 97%. 32 minutes until outpost detonation." Tay took another step, then another. Each one had to be precise. Too fast, and the claws might not catch properly. Too slow, and they wouldn't make it in time. After 10 steps, Ta found a rhythm. The boots clicked and whirred. The claws gripped and released. Ji was silent on his back, but he could feel her tension in the way she held on to him. They were 20 meters from the outpost when Ji suddenly stiffened. She made a sharp noise and tapped Ta's helmet urgently. "What is it?" he asked, stopping. Ji pointed up. Ta followed her gesture and saw nothing but stars and floating asteroids in the distance. "I don't see anything," he said. Ji reached around and turned his head slightly to the left. Now he saw it, a faint shimmer against the starfield. Something moving. Something watching. "Mary, scan that sector," Ta whispered. "Scanning," Mary said. "Detecting unusual heat signature. Possible cloaked vessel. Size suggests scout ship or small fighter." Tay's heart raced. "Are they tracking us?" "Unknown, but their position has adjusted 3 times to maintain line of sight with your current location." Ji tapped Ta's helmet again and pointed to a large rock formation to their right. "You want to go that way?" Ta asked. "It's longer." Ji nodded firmly. "Mary, recalculate route through the rock formations. How much time will we lose?" "Approximately 7 minutes. We'll reduce visibility to potential observers by 68%. Ta made his decision quickly. New route it is. He changed direction, heading toward the rocks. Each step was more difficult now. The terrain became uneven, forcing the gravity boots to adjust constantly. The machinery strained, sending warning vibrations up Ta's legs. "Boot integrity down to 89%, Mary reported. They'd reached the rock formation, a twisted spire of gray stone that rose 20 meters high. Its shadow provided some cover as Ta navigated around its base. She suddenly spoke, her voice soft but urgent. Her words came through Ta's translator in broken phrases. "They looking for data core. Very dangerous people." "Who are they?" Ta asked as he kept moving. "Called the Collective," Jai replied. "Want to control everything." Before Ta could ask more, one of his boots slipped on loose gravel. For a heart-stopping moment, they began to drift upward, untethered from the surface. Chi gasped. Ta twisted his body, reaching desperately with his other foot. The claws caught on a rock ledge, stopping their ascent. "That was close," Ta breathed, lowering them carefully back to solid ground. Ji's arms were wrapped tightly around him, her face pressed against his helmet. Through the clear visor, Ta could see her violet eyes were wide with fear. "We're okay," he assured her. "The boots are holding." "Boot integrity down to 82%, Mary announced. 25 minutes until outpost detonation. Tay took a deep breath and started forward again. The ship was still 150 meters away. The mysterious watchers were somewhere above, and time was running out. "Just hold on," he told Ji. "We're going to make it." The rock formations created a maze around them. Ta moved as quickly as he dared, each step careful but urgent. The boot's claws scraped against stone as they dug in for grip. Boot integrity at 76%, Mary reported. 20 minutes until outpost detonation. Ty felt sweat forming inside his suit despite the cooling system. G was silent on his back, but her grip remained tight. They emerged from a narrow passage between two tall rocks. The songbird was now visible again, closer than before. Ty allowed himself a moment of hope. That hope died when a bright light suddenly flooded over them from above. A ship had appeared, its cloaking device now disabled. It hung in the darkness like a predator, sleek and black with weapon ports glowing red along its hull. It was small but deadly looking, built for speed and attack. "Mary, identify that vessel," Ta said, ducking behind a boulder. "Unknown design, no registry broadcast. Weapons systems active and targeting." A voice boomed from the ship, speaking in standard language. "Attention, human vessel. You are interfering with collective business. Surrender the subject on your back, and you will be permitted to leave." Ji's fingers dug into Ta's shoulders. He felt her shake her head against his helmet. "What do they want with you?" Ta whispered. Ji reached around and tapped the pocket where Ta had placed the data core. The voice from the ship came again. "You have 30 seconds to comply. The subject is property of the collective. This is your only warning." Ta quickly assessed their options. They couldn't outrun the ship. Fighting was impossible, but surrender meant giving up Ji to people who considered her property. "Mary, what's our best route to the ship?" "Direct path now blocked by collective vessel. Recommend alternate route through the crater field to the east. Warning, much more difficult terrain." Ta made his decision. "Hold tight," he told Ji. Then he sprinted in the opposite direction from the ship. The sudden movement caught the collective by surprise. By the time their searchlights swung around, Tai and Ji had reached the edge of a deep crater. Without hesitation, Tai jumped. On Earth, the jump would have been impossible. On Nix 7, with its minimal gravity, they soared across the crater in a long, slow arc. The boots couldn't grip anything in midair, making them temporarily weightless. Ji gasped as they floated. The sensation of falling lasted several seconds before they began to descend toward the other side. "Brace for landing," Ta called. They hit the far rim hard. The gravity boots activated instantly, claws extending to grip the surface. The impact sent pain shooting up Ta's legs, but the boots held. Behind them, the collective ship fired. A beam of energy hit the spot they had just left, turning rock into glowing slag. "Boot integrity at 68%, Mary warned. 15 minutes until outpost detonation." Tai kept moving, zigzagging between craters and rock formations. The collective ship followed, its weapons firing again and again, always just missing them. "They're not trying to kill us," Tai realized aloud. "They want to trap us." "Want me alive," Jay said, her voice strained. "Need what's in my head." They reached a deep crevice, too wide to jump across. Ta looked left and right, seeing no way around. "Mary, options. No viable crossing point within 200 meters, ship approaching rapidly." Above them, the collective vessel moved into position, its searchlight pinning them in place. "Nowhere to run," the voice announced. "Surrender now." Ta looked down into the dark crevice. In the shadows, he could make out narrow ledges along its walls. "Ji, do you trust me?" he asked. She tightened her hold on him in response. "Mary, cut comms for 2 minutes. Don't track our position. Warning, this is not recommended. Just do it." Mary's voice cut off. Ta took a deep breath. Then he stepped forward and dropped into the crevice. They fell slowly in the weak gravity. Ta twisted his body, aiming for a narrow ledge on the crevice wall. Above them, the searchlight from the collective ship swept back and forth, unable to penetrate the deep shadows. The gravity boots' claws extended to their maximum length as they landed on the ledge. The impact sent loose rocks tumbling into the darkness below. Todd pressed his back against the wall, holding perfectly still. "Are you okay?" he whispered to Je. She nodded against his helmet. Her breathing was fast but controlled. They stayed frozen as the collective ship hovered overhead. Minutes passed. Finally, the ship moved away, its engines growing fainter. "Mary," resumed comms. Ta said. "Connection restored." Mary's voice replied. "Unable to track your position due to interference from surrounding rock. 10 minutes until outpost detonation. Can you guide us through this crevice?" Scanning. There appears to be a tunnel network, possibly natural formations or mining operations. One path leads in the general direction of the ship. Ta looked along the ledge. It was barely wide enough for his boots, but it extended into a dark tunnel about 20 meters away. "Boot integrity?" he asked. "Down to 59%. Claw mechanisms showing significant stress damage." Not good, but they had no choice. Ta began moving carefully along the ledge, keeping his back to the wall. Each step had to be perfect. One slip meant floating away into the darkness below. They'd reached the tunnel entrance. It was low and narrow, but passable. Inside, strange crystals in the walls gave off a faint blue glow, providing just enough light to see. "This must be what they were mining here," Ta said. The tunnel sloped upward gently. Ta's boots gripped the rocky floor as they climbed. The strain on his legs was intense after carrying G for so long, but he pushed through the pain. In a wider section of the tunnel, Ta stopped to rest. He carefully helped G sit on a rock ledge, making sure she was secure before letting go. Jai looked at him with her strange violet eyes. In the blue glow of the crystals, her face seemed almost otherworldly. "Thank you," she said, her voice clearer now, "for saving me." "What does the collective want with you?" Tai asked. "And what's on that data core?" Jai looked down at her hands. Then she reached for a small rock and began drawing in the dust on the floor. First, she drew a spiral shape. "Galaxy," she said. Next, she drew a small circle. "Earth." Then she drew a human figure, and beside it another figure that looked almost human but slightly different. "You're not human?" Tai asked. Ji touched her chest. "Half human. Half." She struggled for the word, then pointed to the stars. "You're a hybrid, but that's illegal in most systems." Jay nodded sadly. "Created by scientists to help humans." She continued drawing, showing a DNA strand. Then she pointed to Ta. "Humans have special gift, can adapt, can survive, can change." She tapped her head. "Data core shows how to unlock more human power." Tai was trying to understand. "The collective doesn't want humans to have this power. Collective controls galaxy, fears humans, if humans evolve." She made an exploding gesture with her hands. "So you were part of a research team?" Jay nodded. "I am. Lead scientist. My real name, Sun." She looked at him intently. "I saved data. You saved me. Together, can change everything." Before Tai could respond, Mary's voice broke in urgently. 5 minutes until outpost detonation. Detecting movement in the tunnels ahead of you." Tai helped Sun back onto his back. "We need to move." "Different path," Sun said, pointing to a side tunnel. "I remember, from old maps. Leads to surface, near your ship." Ta hesitated only a moment before following her direction. The gravity boots whined as they entered the narrower tunnel. "Boot integrity at 50%, Mary warned. "Recommend extreme caution." Behind them, they heard voices echoing through the tunnels. The collective had found their trail. The tunnel grew steeper as they climbed. Taz's legs burned with each step. The gravity boots strained under the double weight, the machinery inside them making grinding noises that echoed off the walls. "Boot integrity at 42%, Mary warned. 3 minutes until outpost detonation." Behind them, the sounds of pursuit grew louder. Voices called out in strange languages. Lights flashed in the darkness. Almost there, Sun whispered, her mouth close to Ta's helmet. Left turn ahead. Ta followed her directions, turning into an even narrower passage. His shoulders scraped against the walls. Sun had to duck her head to avoid hitting the ceiling. Mary, where does this tunnel lead? Ta asked. Calculating based on trajectory. It should emerge approximately 50 meters from the songbird. Hope surged through Ta. They might make it after all. The tunnel ended at a vertical shaft. A thin beam of starlight shone down from above. Freedom was just meters away, but the shaft was straight up with no handholds. Boot integrity at 38%, Mary reported. The claws may not support a vertical climb with double weight. Ta studied the shaft walls. The surface was too smooth for good grip, but they had no choice. Sun, hold on as tight as you can, he said. This will be rough. Sun's arms tightened around his shoulders. He felt her press her face against his back. Ta positioned his right boot against the wall. The claws extended, digging into the rock. He pushed up, testing the grip. It held. He positioned his left boot higher and pushed again. Slowly, painfully, they began to climb. Each step was a battle against gravity, weak as it was. The boot's motors whined in protest. Halfway up, there was a sharp crack. One of the claws on Ta's right boot snapped off. Boot integrity critical, Mary announced. Right boot claw system failing. Ta froze. They hung in the shaft, one boot barely gripping the wall. Sun, he said calmly, if I fall, try to push off from me toward the surface. The gravity is weak enough that you might make it. No, she replied firmly. Together, or not at all. Suddenly, Ta felt something strange. A light pressure seemed to lift some of his weight. It felt like invisible hands were helping to hold him up. He looked over his shoulder at Sun. Her violet eyes were glowing brightly. Her face was tight with concentration. What are you? Climb. She interrupted, her voice strained. Can't. Hold long. Not questioning the impossible, Todd continued climbing. His boots found better purchase now, as if they carried less weight. In moments, they reached the top of the shaft. Todd pulled them out onto the surface of Nix 7. The starry sky spread above them. In the distance, the songbird waited, untouched. Sun sagged against him, breathing hard. The glow faded from her eyes. How did you do that? Tai asked in wonder. Part of the research, Sun managed between breaths. Human potential. Unlocked. Before Tai could ask more, a tremendous explosion lit up the horizon. The outpost's self-destruct had triggered, sending a shockwave across the surface. Run, Mary urged. 1 minute until shockwave reaches your position. Tay's right boot was badly damaged, its claws barely extending. Each step was a gamble now. But the ship was close. He broke into a limping run, the boots struggling to maintain contact with the surface. Sun held on tightly as they bounced and jolted toward the songbird. Behind them, figures emerged from the shaft. Collective soldiers in sleek suits, their own gravity boots allowing them to give chase. 30 seconds to shockwave impact, Mary announced. 20 meters to ship. A shot flashed past them, missing by centimeters. Another hit a rock near Taz's foot, sending fragments floating slowly upward. The songbird's entry ramp began to lower as they approached. Mary was preparing for their arrival. 10 seconds to shockwave, 10 meters to ship. Ta gathered his remaining strength for one final push. His right boot failed completely, the last claw breaking free. For a terrifying moment, his foot lifted off the surface, threatening to send them tumbling. Then Sun's hand shot forward, pointing at the ship. Ta felt that strange pressure again, pushing them forward as if carried by an invisible wave. They flew toward the waiting ramp as the shockwave rushed toward them from behind. Tay and Sun landed hard on the songbird's ramp. The impact knocked the air from Ta's lungs. He rolled, protecting Sun as best he could. Close it, he shouted to Mary. The ramp began to rise. Behind them, The shockwave hit the pursuing collective soldiers, sending them tumbling across Nix-7's surface. Inside the ship, Ta lay on his back, gasping for breath. Sun rolled off him, her violet eyes dim with exhaustion. "Mary, get us out of here," Ta ordered. "Engine startup sequence initiated," Mary replied. "Warning. Collective ship approaching." Ta helped Sun to her feet. Together, they staggered to the cockpit. Through the view screen, they could see the black collective ship moving toward them, weapons glowing. "They're going to shoot us down," Ta said. He dropped into the pilot's seat and grabbed the controls. The Songbird's engines roared to life. Ta pulled back on the stick, lifting them off Nix-7's surface. But the collective ship was faster. It moved to block their escape path. "Weapon systems locked onto our position," Mary announced. Suddenly, the Songbird's comm system activated. A face appeared on the screen, a humanoid with pale gray skin and cold black eyes. "This is Commander Kell of the Collective," the figure said. "Power down your engines or be destroyed." Ta looked at Sun. She shook her head slightly. "Mary, can we outrun them?" "Negative. Their ship has superior speed and weapons." The Collective commander spoke again. "We want only the hybrid and the data core. Surrender them, and you may go free." Tay's mind raced. They couldn't fight. They couldn't run. But he wouldn't give up Sun. "Land your vessel," Commander Kell ordered. "Now." Tai reluctantly brought the Songbird back down to Nix-7's surface. The moment they touched down, the ship's sensors detected movement outside. 3 collective soldiers approaching, Mary reported. Sun touched Ta's arm. "Thank you for trying," she said. Her voice was stronger now, her words clearer. "But I won't let you die for me." She moved toward the airlock. Ta grabbed her hand. "Wait, there must be another way." Sun looked back at him. "Their weapons can destroy this ship in seconds. You've done enough." "The data core is too important," Tai insisted. "And so are you." They heard the sound of the outer airlock being forced open. The collective soldiers were breaking in. Sun's eyes began to glow again. "Then we make a stand." Ta nodded. He grabbed an emergency repair tool from under the console. Not a weapon, but better than nothing. They positioned themselves at the inner airlock door. Tay's broken gravity boots lay discarded on the floor. His legs still ached from the journey. The inner door slid open. 3 tall figures entered, wearing sleek armor and carrying energy weapons. Their helmets had no visors, just smooth black surfaces that reflected Tai and Sun like mirrors. Commander Kell stepped forward. "Subject Sun, you have led us on quite a chase." His voice was smooth but cold. "Return what belongs to the collective." "I belong to no one," Sun replied. The commander tilted his head. "You misunderstand. You are not what we want. You are merely the container." He pointed at her head. "The knowledge you carry is collective property. The data core is collective property. Human potential is not property," Ta said, stepping forward. "And neither is Sun." The commander ignored him, focusing on Sun. "You know what happens to those who defy the collective. Your colleagues learned this lesson." Sun's face hardened. "What did you do to them?" "They served their purpose, as you will." Ta gripped his tool tighter. The collective soldiers raised their weapons. "Last chance," Commander Kell said. "Come willingly." Sun's eyes glowed brighter. Ta noticed small objects around the ship, tools, parts, even his broken gravity boots, beginning to vibrate and lift slightly off the floor. "No," Sun said simply. Commander Kell sighed. "Then we take you by force." He raised his hand to signal the soldiers. They aimed their weapons at Ta. But before they could fire, Sun thrust both hands forward. The broken gravity boots shot across the room like missiles, hitting the first soldier's helmet with a loud crack. Chaos erupted inside the Songbird. The gravity boot hit the first soldier with such force that he crashed against the wall. The second soldier fired his weapon, but Sun moved her hand in a swift motion. The energy blast curved in midair, hitting the ceiling instead. Tai didn't waste the opportunity. He lunged forward, swinging his tool at the second soldier's arm. The weapon clattered to the floor. Commander Kell backed away, reaching for his own weapon. But Sun's power had grown stronger. With a look of intense concentration, she held out both hands. The commander froze in place, unable to move. "How are you doing this?" he demanded, his cold voice now tinged with fear. "Your abilities were limited." Sun spoke calmly. "You never understood what we were researching. Human potential has no limits." The third soldier tried to rush Sun, but Tai intercepted him. Though exhausted, Ta found strength he didn't know he had. He fought with everything he had, protecting Sun as she focused her power on the commander. "Mary!" Ta shouted as he struggled with the soldier. "Emergency takeoff sequence." "Acknowledged," Mary replied. "Warning, outer airlock still open. Close it and go," Tai ordered. The ship shuddered as the outer airlock slammed shut. The engines roared to life. The sudden movement threw everyone off balance. Ta used the moment to deliver a powerful blow to the soldier's helmet, cracking its surface. The songbird lifted off, accelerating rapidly. Through the view screen, they could see the collective ship beginning to pursue. Sun turned to the commander, who was still frozen by her power. "Tell your ship to stand down." Commander Kell laughed despite his situation. The collective never retreats. Sun's eyes glowed brighter. "Then see what human potential truly means." She closed her eyes for a moment. Outside, the collective ship suddenly veered off course, as if pushed by an invisible hand. It tumbled end over end, its weapons firing randomly into space. The strain was too much. Sun collapsed to her knees, blood trickling from her nose. The commander and the remaining soldier broke free of her control. They rushed toward the weapons on the floor. Ta moved faster. He grabbed one of the energy weapons and pointed it at them. "Stay back," he warned. Commander Kell froze, assessing the situation. After a moment, he straightened his posture. "This isn't over," he said. "The collective will find you." "Maybe," Tai replied, "but not today." He kept the weapon trained on them as Mary piloted the songbird away from Nix 7, accelerating toward the edge of the asteroid field. The commander looked at Sun one last time. "You can't change what you are. A tool. A weapon. Nothing more." Sun, still kneeling on the floor, looked up at him. "You're wrong. I'm human too. That's what you never understood." Hours later, the immediate danger was past. The collective soldiers were locked in the cargo hold. The songbird had left the asteroid field behind and was traveling through open space. Tai sat with Sun in the ship's small medical bay. She looked better after rest and treatment, the glow in her eyes now a soft violet light. "Where will you go now?" Tai asked. Sun looked down at the data core in her hand. "To Earth. This knowledge belongs to humans. All humans. The collective will hunt you." She nodded. "Yes, but they fear what will happen when humans learn what they can truly become." Tai thought about everything they had been through. The broken gravity boots, the desperate journey across Nix 7's surface, the fights and near-death experiences. "I'll take you to Earth," he decided. "Mary, set course for the Sol system." "Course set," Mary confirmed. "Estimated arrival, 10 days. Sun looked surprised. "You would risk everything. For someone you barely know." Ta smiled. "That's another human quality the collective doesn't understand. We help each other. We stand together." He picked up one of his broken gravity boots from the floor. The claws were bent and the machinery damaged beyond repair. But it had carried them both to safety when it seemed impossible. "Besides," he added, "I think I was meant to find you, to help carry your discovery to where it belongs." Sun's hand found his. They sat together as the songbird accelerated toward Earth, carrying the new beginning for humanity among the stars. The end.